The world does not collapse, it shifts. What seems like decay is reallocation. What feels like chaos is simply the old loyalties being priced out of relevance. The prince who believes in permanence is already ruled. Because nothing is permanent in the machinery of power, not allegiance, not affection, not even victory, especially not victory. To rule is to breathe among ruins, and not just the ruins of others, but your own. When the strong withdraw, it is not from cowardice, it is calculation. To hold one position too long is to invite siege. To expect understanding is to surrender initiative. The strong do not announce their exit. They vanish into vantage. The weak wait. They wait for permission, for consensus, for mercy. But the theater of power has no script that favors patience. Those who wait are fed to those who don't. The ruler who survives is not the one who most believes in his cause, but the one who knows when cause must bow to necessity. Power is not maintained by ideals. It is maintained by tension, by the unrelenting pressure of perception and control. The crowd follows who commands fear with elegance and favor with calculation. To inspire loyalty, you must first become necessary, and necessity is not born in kindness. It is born in leverage, in the ability to punish without apology and to reward without debt. Do not confuse admiration with allegiance. People admire what shines, but they follow what shields them or threatens them, and they betray what bores them. Even the most virtuous sovereign will be devoured if he forgets that appearances are not ornaments. They are weapons. Identity is costume in the court of power. You wear what the moment requires. Truth is irrelevant if it weakens your position. Morality is performative unless backed by force. Reputation is more useful than integrity, because it can be weaponized. Trust is for the governed. Suspicion is for the ruler. He who believes in transparency opens the gates to manipulation. Every confession becomes ammunition in the hands of rivals. Every revealed thought a roadmap to your undoing. You must be a mystery even to your allies, especially to your allies. A predictable prince is a temporary prince. Withdraw, and they will imagine your next move. Wait, and they will design it for you. Fear is more stable than love, because love is soft. It demands renewal, maintenance, performance. But fear is self-reinforcing. It needs no proof once implanted. It governs in silence. To build fear is to build a throne beneath the surface of things. It is the architecture of command. But too much fear, and your court becomes a chamber of knives. No ruler survives long in an atmosphere of paranoia without eventually consuming himself. The solution is rhythm, not balance. Rhythm. Reward and punish with strategic inconsistency. Make your favor seem rare, your wrath inevitable, but not constant. A man can live under a storm if he believes the sun might return. Give your subjects a rhythm they can fear and follow. The wise ruler does not seek to be loved, he ensures he can be counted on. And when you can no longer be counted on, vanish. Let your silence become prophecy. That is the difference between abdication and transformation. The strong do not cling to the throne. They evolve it. They recede into shadows only to reappear with sharper instruments. Withdrawal is not retreat. It is regrouping. The general who shifts terrain before the enemy strikes is not running. He is ensuring the enemy strikes nothing. Exile, too, is misunderstood. Exile is not loss. It is distance, and distance grants clarity. When you are too close to the crowd, you begin to breathe their delusions. When you rule from their level, you inherit their illusions. But step back, and the contours emerge. You will see loyalty for what it is, temporary alignment of interests, nothing more. You will see betrayal as a natural return to self-interest, nothing less. Power is not a prize, it is a burden, a knife held by those willing to bleed others before themselves. Many wish to lead until they realize leadership is not admiration, it is isolation. It is making choices others won't understand until it is too late. It is sacrificing the visible good for the invisible advantage, and bearing the cost without the comfort of absolution. If you must be virtuous, be so strategically. Let your virtue be a disguise, not a doctrine. Let it be what they expect of you, not what you expect of yourself. For the prince who seeks virtue in purity will be slaughtered by those who seek victory in deception. To govern is not to heal the world, it is to manage its wounds. Do not try to cure what feeds you. A stable society is not a peaceful one. It is one where the turbulence is predictable, contained, directed. The appearance of peace is more valuable than its reality, because the masses do not crave truth. They crave certainty, symbols, spectacle. And this is the hidden theater. The crowd does not want to be free. They want to feel like they chose their chains. Give them that illusion, and they will follow you through fire. Remove it, and they will hang you from your own ideals. The ruler must not always be sincere. He must always be convincing. He must know when to smile like a friend while calculating like an assassin. And he must learn the one truth most cannot bear. Even the deepest bonds require structure, and structure in all spheres, politics, family, even love, depends not only on trust, but on consequence. Even God is obeyed more from fear of judgment than from purity of devotion. To lead is to accept this and use it, to weaponize the instincts others pretend to rise above. The weak wait, the strong withdraw. They know that power once shown must then be hidden, that the hand once raised must then disappear. Let them wonder what you will do next. Wonder is the ally of fear, and fear is the mother of obedience. Let your ambition be glacial, slow, inevitable, a mountain reshaping the valley without ever announcing its motion. The sovereign who survives is not the boldest, but the most patient, not the most moral, but the most adaptive. He watches as others reach, he studies as others speak, and when he moves, it is already too late for them to respond. This is the law of power. Control is not seized, it is constructed. Not in the open, but in the silence between acts. Not in the speech, but in the pause. Not in the clash, but in the retreat. The strong withdraw, and when they return, they do not knock. They command. The masses speak of legacy. The prince speaks of continuity. Legacy is sentimental. Continuity is structural. One is spoken over your grave. The other speaks through your institutions long after the mourners have turned to dust. And yet both begin the same way, with perception. Before a throne is built in stone, it is constructed in the minds of those who must kneel before it. So control begins not with action, but with narrative. The modern ruler must understand that truth does not spread on its own. Lies are faster, cleaner, easier to repeat. But a lie dressed in the clothing of truth, that is doctrine. People do not need to be convinced. They need to be oriented. A subtle correction here, a rumor there, a silence that permits the loud to hang themselves. These are the scalpel strokes of control. A wise ruler does not declare reality, he composes it. But to compose, he must first observe. The mistake of many young sovereigns is haste. They wish to act before they understand. But haste is the enemy of strategy. The world will not bend to the will that shouts. It folds for the hand that waits. Learn the rhythm of your enemy before you strike. Study his hunger before you offer bait. Know his fears before you shape your threats. There is no battlefield more revealing than an opponent's silence. Never interrupt a rival who is building his own illusion. Let him construct it. Let him decorate it. Let him worship it. And when it becomes his foundation, you do not need to attack. You simply step aside when it collapses. This is power by negation, to destroy without touching, to humiliate without speaking, to win by refusing to play the expected game. Understand this. The game of power is never played once. It is not a war, but a climate, and your opponent is not merely a man, it is human nature. This is why most fail. They prepare for enemies, but forget appetites. You cannot conquer what you cannot anticipate, and you cannot anticipate what you do not accept. Accept this. People are selfish before they are loyal. They are reactive before they are reflective. They are driven by fear and desire, not reason and duty. Once this is not a theory but a reflex, you begin to govern. The modern state is not held together by justice. It is held together by perception of justice. The court, the law, the anthem, the flag, all of it, performance, ritual, myth wrapped in metal, and behind it, the bureaucracy of surveillance, suppression, and reward. It must be so, because you are not merely governing people, you are governing instincts, shadows, echoes of ancient hungers dressed in modern clothes. Democracy is not sacred, it is convenient, until it no longer is. Then the crowd will burn their ballots and raise their fists. And they will look to you. They will demand order, not because they believe in you, but because they fear the alternative. That is your moment. Not when the people are happy, but when they are afraid. Tyranny begins with applause when it arrives in uniform. So be careful. The most dangerous moment for a ruler is not failure, it is success. Success breeds overconfidence. Overconfidence breeds exposure. Exposure breeds vulnerability, and the wolves never sleep. To survive success, you must already be planning its dismantling. That is the ruler's paradox. You build only to rebuild. You secure only to unsettle. You must remain necessary. Permanence is the mask of decay. Do not let them crown you forever. Let them believe your reign is a moment, and then make it a mirror in which each successor must see your shadow. That is legacy, not a statue, but a system that fears your return. And what of betrayal? It will come, and it will come from the closest hands. But betrayal is not failure, it is confirmation. It tells you who understood your power and who mistook it for generosity. A betrayer is merely someone who thought you had grown weak or too sentimental. Punish them not with rage, punish them with inevitability. Let their fall be quiet, bureaucratic, surgical. Let them vanish, not in fire but in fog. Make others wonder, was it misstep or miscalculation? Uncertainty is more frightening than punishment, and more instructive. Now ask yourself this: would you rather be feared or respected? The honest answer is neither. You must be necessary. Respected men can be questioned, feared men can be overthrown, but necessary men, they are kept in power even by those who despise them. So build dependence. Build institutions that require your silence, your nod, your absence. Build mechanisms that fail when you are not there to breathe life into them. The illusion of freedom is strongest when its chains are invisible. The most effective form of control is not domination, it is integration. Make them feel your policies are theirs. Make your will feel like collective fate. Drape it in process. Translate it into meetings, reports, signatures. They will forget it was ever your desire. This is how empires are built now, not on horses, but in protocols. Not in blood, but in consent forms. The modern prince is not a warlord, he is a systems engineer of obedience. But never forget, the machine must be beautiful, or it will be dismantled. Which brings us to aesthetics. Yes, aesthetics. Even terror must be elegant. If your face is crude, your throne becomes grotesque. Learn the art of distance. Do not speak too often. Do not explain too much. Speak less than they want. Smile more than they expect. Mystery is power. Ambiguity is armor. The leader who reveals everything invites dissection, and power, once dissected, bleeds out. Hold your silence as a blade. Let them fear what they imagine more than what you ever do. In this age, the ruler must be digital and divine, present everywhere, yet seen nowhere. He must radiate without revealing. Let others chase virality. You chase permanence. This is the cold truth. The world does not need to know you to obey you. It only needs to fear your return. Withdraw when they beg you to stay. Reappear when they believe you've vanished. Let the system carry your fingerprints, even when your hands are clean. That is the power that survives elections, revolutions, collapse. That is the power that needs no title. That is how the strong adapt, and by adapting, endure. War is not obsolete. It is just better dressed. The battlefield now wears the mask of commerce. It speaks in sanctions, in supply chains, in subtle disinformation. Steel still kills, but silence conquers. When economic pressure disables a nation more effectively than invasion, that is war, redefined. When the algorithm shapes belief more deeply than the pulpit, that is control, redistributed. The prince who sees war only in bombs and borders is already lost, because power today does not declare war, it defines the conditions under which others destroy themselves. You must think beyond armies. Armies are blunt, expensive, traceable. But ideas? They can be inserted like a virus. No landing craft, no declaration, just the quiet corrosion of certainty. He who controls belief controls behavior. And belief, today, is broken into algorithms. Understand this. Every state is now at war with the perception of itself, and most are losing. The map may remain the same, but the loyalty of its people is a shifting wind. Identity is being weaponized. National myths are being edited in real time. The flag still flies, but it flaps over an exhausted populace whose attention is elsewhere. That is your advantage. Because while others play for headlines, you play for hardware, you play for infrastructure, for narrative anchors embedded deep in education, entertainment, even architecture. To rule in the 21st century is to compete in a game of memory. He who defines the past defines the perimeter of thought. He who defines the future defines the direction of fear. The smart ruler no longer builds empires. He builds dependencies. Water, data, security, energy. These are the new chains. They do not rattle, they do not break, and they are welcomed. Let the rival build his army. You build his power grid. Let him posture in the United Nations. You posture in his telecommunications. Let him win the hearts of the people. You buy their routers, their servers, their ports. Victory today does not require occupation. It requires relevance. If your absence causes collapse, you have already conquered. But beware, the new enemy does not ride in armor. He is hidden in code, in litigation, in public sentiment shifted by synthetic emotion. The sovereign today must think like a hacker, a saboteur, a silent engineer of context. Forget the blast, build the virus. Forget the parade, build the platform. And never appear to be the cause. Visibility is liability, anonymity is empire. A single exposed motive can undermine a decade of silent conquest. The modern Machiavellian does not wear a crown. He wears plausible deniability. He signs treaties in daylight while rewriting borders in dusk. Diplomacy has not died. It has merely become a theater of delay, a weaponized ritual, a polite fiction stretched over the jaws of ambition. You must smile while taking, nurture while nesting, offer peace while recalibrating your arsenal. Because in this new order, control is no longer enforced through conquest. It is earned through indispensability. Become essential to your enemies. Give them what they need, then condition their need on your favor. This is the quiet subjugation, the obedience dressed in choice. And when they realize it, it will be too late, because their economy will already depend on your systems, their elites on your contracts, their dissenters on your platforms, and their pride on your discretion. This is not merely influence, It is silent sovereignty. And what of ideology? That theater is burned. In the modern arena, the crowd no longer worships ideas. It consumes them, and the strongest ruler is not the one who believes, but the one who supplies. Left, right, freedom, tradition, equality, all of them currencies, mobilization tools, justifications. You must not believe in your slogans. You must believe in your leverage. You must not fight for justice. You must define what justice means. Let others pursue causes. You shape the definitions they fight for. The age of true believers is ending. The age of strategic actors has begun. Even revolutions are now franchisable. The streets erupt. The cameras roll. But ask, who profits from the chaos? Who fills the void once the banners fall? Often, it is the same hand that lit the match. The true ruler does not fear unrest. He designs it. He does not panic at crisis. He accelerates it. For nothing grants you more power than to become the necessary answer to a problem you helped create. But never be the face of the flame. Be the architect of the extinguisher. Let others rage. You prepare the blueprint for order. When the shouting ends, and it always ends, the people will turn to the one who seems least burned. Make sure that is you. Because this is the secret of rule in an age of noise. You must appear calmer than you are. You must appear fairer than you are. You must appear weaker than you are. The crowd fears a tyrant, but it obeys a father. Give them the optics of care, the language of listening. Then listen not to obey, but to predict. He who listens does not serve. He studies. And knowledge, in this new world, is the purest form of coercion. Surveillance has made paranoia redundant. They need not hide anymore. They simply forget you are watching. And when you see enough, you need not rule by law. You rule by nudge, by removal, by shaping not decisions, but options. Control the menu, and they will thank you for their choices. This is not utopia. This is the empire beneath the empire. It has no borders, no anthem, but its reach is total. And when you understand this, when it becomes your instinct, not just your plan, then you will no longer chase power. You will become its gravity. You will not govern a nation. You will govern consequence. And those who once questioned your legitimacy will whisper your inevitability. This is how rulers survive revolution. They preempt it by becoming its beneficiary, by designing it. Power is not heavy because of its size. It is heavy because it must be carried alone. No throne is shared, not truly. Even among councils, even among parliaments, the true sovereign stands apart, not above, not below, simply apart. This is the solitude of command, to see the world not as it is wished to be, but as it must be acted upon. And that vision isolates. It separates the ruler from the ruled, from allies, from friends, even from self. If you do not understand this, you will not survive betrayal. Because betrayal is not the exception, it is the default. Loyalty at best is a lease. At worst, it is camouflage. He who expects fidelity will be undone by the first deviation. He who expects betrayal will convert it into policy. Never measure a man by his promises. Measure him by his incentives. He who has nothing to gain from your fall is your ally for now. He who has something to gain from your favor is your servant for now. But he who fears your wrath more than he desires your throne, that is the only man who can be called loyal, and only until the ratio changes. This is why fear is not cruelty, it is infrastructure. You do not need terror, you need consequence. Fear without rhythm breeds revolt. Fear with rhythm breeds reliability. But never believe that you can build an empire on loyalty alone. That is a myth whispered to rulers who wish to be loved more than they wish to last. Loyalty is transactional, always. Make the transaction clear, make the rewards visible, make the consequences irreversible, and change the terms when necessary. He who rules as if the arrangement is permanent becomes a relic. Institutions evolve, so must your expectations. A court built on trust is an invitation to sabotage. A court built on contingency? That is a machine. And you must become a mechanic of men. Know who needs the title, know who needs the stage, know who needs the silence, and know who needs the axe. Use each accordingly. Manipulation is not immoral, it is essential. A sovereign who refuses to manipulate is either a fool or a puppet, often both. But manipulation, like fire, must be contained. Too much, and your inner circle becomes a theater of actors auditioning for approval. Too little, and they begin to write their own script. The solution is hierarchy, not of power, but of dependency. Let them compete not for your love, but for your necessity. Let them fear irrelevance more than dismissal. Because dismissal is loud, relevance dies in silence. This is the sovereign's art, to be present without being predictable, to be distant without being detached, to know all and reveal nothing. Even your honesty must be calculated. Reveal just enough to make them underestimate your ruthlessness. Appear open not to invite connection, but to disarm suspicion. There is a kind of sincerity that blinds. Practice it. And never, under any circumstances, confess your doubts. A ruler who doubts aloud writes the invitation to his own coup. You may feel fear. You may feel weariness. You may feel disgust at what must be done. But you will show none of it. Emotion in a sovereign is permitted only when it has been rehearsed. What you feel in private is irrelevant. What you project in public is policy. This is why the crown burns, not because of weight, but because of performance. You are never off stage. Even in silence, even in exile, the role continues, and if you abandon it, someone else will wear it. So choose your silences like you choose your decrees. Silence can signify power, it can signify weakness, it can signal nothing, but it never says nothing. The sovereign must learn to speak in absences, in pauses, in who is left out of the room. Because sometimes the greatest punishment is not the blade, but the removal of relevance. Sometimes the greatest betrayal is not treason, but success without you. Which is why succession is the most dangerous question a ruler must answer. Do not confuse inheritance with continuity. Do not mistake blood for discipline. You may raise a son, but you cannot raise a mind prepared for sovereignty. You can only delay the decay. The most dangerous moment in any regime is not its birth, but its reproduction. Because all systems degrade, all alliances rot, all virtues fade under their own performance. You cannot prevent this. You can only delay it. You do this not through institutions of justice, but institutions of fear and favor, not through transparency, but through rhythm, predictable uncertainty, safe instability. A regime that feels too stable invites conspiracy. A regime that feels too chaotic invites collapse. You must offer both in careful measure. You must be storm and sky, arbitrary in appearance, absolute in outcome. Let no man think your wrath is random, but let him be unsure what earns it. This is how loyalty becomes instinct, not choice, not virtue, instinct. But what of love? The sovereign who seeks love from his people will be devoured by their disappointment. The sovereign who accepts their hatred will outlast their revolutions. Do not resist their scorn, use it. Let them curse your name while drinking your water. Let them mock your image while your currency funds their silence. Love is momentary. Fear is renewable. But even fear has limits, and that is where dignity begins. Dignity is the invisible law you write through presence. A ruler without dignity invites mockery, and mockery is fatal because once people laugh at you, they stop fearing you. This is why the modern prince must not only govern, he must haunt. His name must linger in absence. His image must echo through contradiction. He must become the standard by which successors are cursed or praised. That is the final insulation from betrayal, inevitability. No coup can remove a symbol, no exile can erase an architecture. So do not aim merely to lead. Aim to outlive. And to outlive, you must first withdraw. You must learn to vanish before they demand it. You must learn to fall silent before they expect it. You must learn to step back, not as retreat, but as rehearsal. Because the sovereign who remains visible becomes vulnerable. The sovereign who disappears becomes legend. All systems collapse. Not because they are flawed, but because they are believed. The moment a system becomes sacred, it ceases to adapt. The moment an ideology becomes gospel, it ceases to serve. And the moment a ruler begins to believe in his own myth, he is already ruled by it. So the sovereign must learn the final lesson. Do not rule in the name of order. Rule in the name of motion. Power does not thrive in stability. It thrives in the management of instability, in the orchestration of crises, in the precision of panic. The storm is not your enemy. It is your instrument. Feed it. Shape it. Let it rage where you are absent and calm where you command. This is how you turn fear into habit. Understand this. The future belongs not to those who solve chaos, but to those who position themselves as the only ones who can endure it. You must become irreplaceable not by perfection, but by function. Let others promise peace. You offer continuity. Let others preach justice. You offer memory. Let others die for ideals. You persist for consequences. Because in the end, the state is not moral. The state is not sacred. The state is machinery. Cold, beautiful, indifferent machinery maintained by those who are willing to touch the gears without flinching. And you must become the hand inside that machine. Not its face. Let the figurehead wave from the balcony. Let the council cast their votes. Let the actor weep into the camera. You govern in silence. Through scarcity, through rhythm, through options presented and options removed. And when they cry out, when the streets fill, when the fires rise again, you will not speak, because there is nothing left to say. You have outlived language. You will no longer justify. You will no longer plead. You will not appear, because the sovereign who endures does not explain himself to the world. He becomes the condition in which the world explains itself. That is the final power. Not the power to lead. Not the power to rule, but the power to be assumed. To be beneath the thought, behind the curtain, inside the decision. You will not need to return, because they will carry you in their decisions, their fears, their compromises. Not out of reverence, but because they no longer remember what came before you, or imagine what could come after. That is the death of history. That is the triumph of rule. That is your reward for withdrawing before they asked you to leave, for mastering betrayal without believing in trust, for constructing fear without collapsing into cruelty, for choosing rhythm over righteousness. That is why the weak wait, and the strong withdraw, and the sovereign, the true sovereign, does not die. He dissolves into the system and becomes fate.